The heavy oak door of the antique shop groaned as the courier stepped inside, the bell above jingling faintly. Rain dripped from his coat as he placed a small weathered package on the counter. No return address, only a faded wax seal stamped with an insignia, a gear intertwined with an hourglass. The shopkeeper, a man named Elias Grayson, raised an eyebrow but signed for it without question. Once alone, Elias turned the package in his hands. It was lighter than expected, yet something inside emitted a soft, rhythmic ticking, like a heartbeat muffled by layers of brown paper and twine. His fingers worked carefully, unwrapping the parcel to reveal an ornate brass contraption no larger than a music box. Its surface was etched with intricate clockwork patterns, and a tiny key protruded from one side, inviting him to wind it. Curiosity got the better of him. He turned the key once, twice, 3 full rotations, until a series of gears deep within the device whirred to life. The ticking grew louder, steadier, as if the machine were syncing with the very pulse of the room. A faint blue glow emanated from between the seams of its casing, casting eerie shadows across the shelves of forgotten trinkets. Elias leaned closer, mesmerized. Then, without warning, the pocket watch he always kept on the counter, a family heirloom, flickered. Not like a trick of the light, but as though reality itself had stuttered. One moment it was there, the next, gone. His breath caught. He patted the empty space, then dropped to his knees, searching the floor. Nothing. The watch had vanished without a sound, as if it had never existed at all. And yet, the clockwork device continued to tick. Deeper meaning and foreshadowing. This scene establishes the central mystery, an object that defies natural laws, hinting at themes of time, consequence, and irreversible curiosity. The lack of a sender suggests the device has a will of its own, or perhaps a previous owner who knew better than to keep it. The watch's disappearance is the first sign that this machine doesn't just tell time, it manipulates it. Elias's fascination, paired with his lack of caution, foreshadows his eventual downfall. Some discoveries are better left unmade. The shop had fallen unnaturally quiet, save for the relentless ticking of the brass device on the counter. Elias Grayson stood frozen, staring at the empty space where his pocket watch had been moments before. His fingers twitched, half in disbelief, half in a creeping thrill. It couldn't have just vanished. Logic told him to check the floor again, to blame loose floorboards or his own tired eyes. But the watch had been solid, heavy, real. And the device had done something. Swallowing hard, Elias reached for the nearest object, a porcelain figurine of a dancing girl left for repair by some long-forgotten customer. He held it over the clockwork contraption, his pulse loud in his ears. The gears inside the machine seemed to quicken, as if sensing his intention. With a slow breath, he let go. The figurine dropped, and never hit the surface. Mid-air, it shuddered, like a reflection disturbed by a thrown stone. Then, between one blink and the next, it was gone. No sound of shattering ceramic, no glint of broken pieces on the floor, just absence. Elias gasped, stumbling back. His mind raced through explanations, trick of the light, some hidden compartment in the machine, but deep down, he knew. This was no illusion. The device had taken the figurine as cleanly as a magician's sleight of hand, but without the pretense of showmanship. This was something colder, something true. Then, a noise, a faint, tinny clink. His head snapped toward the sound. There, on a high shelf across the room, the porcelain figurine sat perfectly intact, as if it had always been there. But that was impossible. He hadn't moved, hadn't thrown it. And the shelf was dusty, undisturbed for weeks. Elias's breath came fast now. He reached for the figurine, turning it over in his hands. No cracks, no flaws. But when he rubbed his thumb over its surface, the dust came away too easily, as if it had only just arrived. Deeper. Meaning and foreshadowing. This scene shatters Elias's skepticism, forcing him to confront the impossible. The figurine's reappearance suggests the device doesn't erase objects. It relocates them, either in space or time. The unnatural silence, the machine's reaction to his actions, and the eerie perfection of the figurine's return all hint at a mechanism beyond human understanding. But there's a sinister edge. The device operates by its own rules, and Elias's experiments are already spiraling beyond his control. The figurine's flawless state is a warning. What vanishes may come back wrong in ways he can't yet see. Would you like to lean into the horror of the machine's effects, or emphasize the wonder alongside the dread? I can adjust the tone accordingly. Elias Grayson no longer bothered to flip the sign to closed. The world outside had ceased to matter. There was only the machine, its rhythmic ticking now as familiar as his own heartbeat. The porcelain figurine's reappearance had left him sleepless, his mind feverish with possibilities. If it could move an object, he reasoned, what else could it do? He started small. A brass key, a candle holder, a leather-bound book, each placed deliberately atop the device's polished surface. Each time the machine responded with the same eerie precision. A hum of gears, a flicker of blue light, and the object would dissolve from existence, only to reappear seconds later, sometimes inches away, sometimes atop a shelf he hadn't touched in months. Once, the book materialized upside down, its pages fluttering as though caught in an unfelt wind. Then came the living test. The black cat, a stray that often slipped in through the alley window, padded across the workbench, tail twitching with feline curiosity. Elias hesitated. This was different. This was alive. But the question burned too brightly to ignore. He lifted the animal gently, feeling the rumble of its purr against his palms, and set it down beside the machine. The effect was immediate. The cat's pupils dilated, its fur bristling as the device's ticking grew louder, more insistent. Then, a sound like a snapped wire. The cat jolted, its body distorting for a single nauseating moment, not vanishing, but stretching, as though seen through warped glass. Then it was gone. No flicker, no gradual fade, just emptiness where a living creature had been. Elias's hands shook. He called out, stupidly, as if the animal might meow from some unseen corner. Silence answered. Then, from the shadows beneath the shelves, a slow, uneven scraping. The cat emerged, but wrong. Its movements were jerky, mechanical, as though its bones had been replaced with rusted hinges. One eye gleamed with an unnatural sheen, the pupil slit like a clock's hand at high noon. It took a single step toward Elias, then collapsed, twitching, its breath coming in ragged metallic gasps. The machine ticked on, indifferent. Deeper meaning and foreshadowing. This scene marks the point of no return. The cat's transformation reveals the true horror of the device. It doesn't just displace, it alters, twisting organic matter into something caught between flesh and machinery. The imagery of the cat's clockwork eye and jerky movements mirrors the device's own inner workings, suggesting it imposes its nature on whatever it touches. Elias's mounting obsession and disregard for ethics, testing on a living creature, foreshadow his eventual fate. He's already becoming like the machine, cold and relentless in his pursuit of understanding. The cat's suffering is a grim preview of what might happen if he dares to use the device on himself. The tone here leans into body horror and moral decay. Should we heighten the grotesque details of the cat's transformation, or would you prefer a more subdued, psychological unease? Elias stared at the cat's twitching body, its breath now a wet, clicking wheeze, like a wind-up toy winding down. His stomach turned, but his hands still itched to try again. Maybe it was a fluke. Maybe living tissue needed adjustment. He reached for the machine, fingers trembling as he turned the key once more. And his sleeve caught on the edge of the casing. A jolt, a slip. His pinky finger brushed the exposed gears. The world split. For less than a second, Elias saw double. His hand both there and not, the flesh translucent, the bones beneath glowing like hot wires. Pain lanced up his arm, not like burning, but like unspooling, as if his very cells were being peeled apart into threads of time. He wrenched back with a shout, collapsing against the workbench. His finger remained whole, but when he flexed it, the skin rippled, the nail gleaming dully like polished brass. He rubbed at it frantically, but the metallic sheen didn't fade. It was part of him now. And then, a whisper of movement at the edge of his vision. Across the room, near the door, a shadow moved. No, not a shadow. Himself. A faint, flickering silhouette of Elias, reaching out as if trapped behind glass. Their eyes met. The other Elias's mouth opened in a silent scream. Then it was gone. The shop was silent again. The machine ticked, steady, patient. Elias clutched his altered hand to his chest. The air smelled like ozone and hot metal. He thought of the cat. He thought of the figurine. He thought of the version of himself he had just seen, or had yet to see, or might never see again. The machine didn't just vanish things. It unmade them. Deeper meaning and foreshadowing. This scene is the turning point. The moment Elias realizes the corruption is personal. His brush with the machine doesn't just leave a physical mark. It fractures his very existence, suggesting the device doesn't merely displace or alter, but splinters reality. The glimpse of his doppelganger, whether a past, future, or parallel version of himself, hints at the true horror. The machine doesn't follow linear time. It consumes it. His metallic finger is no longer just flesh. It's a ticking part of the mechanism now, foreshadowing his eventual fate, not just as a victim of the machine, but as part of its design. The tone here is visceral body horror with a side of existential dread. Should we make the doppelganger more interactive, or keep it as a fleeting, ghostly omen? Elias Grayson had stopped sleeping. The metallic sheen had spread. It crept up his finger like slow corrosion, the skin hardening into something cold and unyielding. He'd taken to wearing gloves, but he could still feel it, the unnatural weight, the faint, internal ticking that synced with the machine's relentless pulse. That night, by the guttering light of a kerosene lamp, he finally pried open the device's base panel. Beneath the gears, tucked between coiled springs like a confession, lay a folded slip of parchment. The ink was faded, the script spidery and rushed, as if written in desperation. "To the fool who winds this mechanism," it began, and Elias's throat tightened. "This device is not a toy. It does not destroy, nor does it create. It displaces, yes, but not through space, through time. The gears do not turn forward but sideways, into the cracks between moments. What vanishes is not gone, but unraveled. A word of warning. The longer an object remains displaced, the less of it returns, and some things, living things, do not return at all. They become echoes. They become parts of the machine." The last line was smudged, as if the writer's hand had shaken. "I have seen myself in the gaps. I do not like what I see." Elias stared at the words until they blurred. Then, from the shadows behind him, came a sound, a wet, rhythmic clicking, like a broken pendulum. He turned. The cat, or what was left of it, perched on the shelf. Its brass eye gleamed, but the other side of its face had caved inward, revealing not bone, but gears, tiny and intricate, spinning lazily in the hollow of its skull. Its mouth opened, It ticked. Deeper meaning and foreshadowing. This scene is the horror of understanding. The letter confirms the machine's true function. It doesn't just bend time, it frays it, leaving whatever passes through it diminished, corrupted. The inventor's warning mirrors Elias's own fate. His metallic finger proves he's already becoming part of the mechanism, just as the cat has. The revelation that the machine consumes identity as much as flesh escalates the stakes. This isn't just about losing objects, but losing oneself. The cat's return as a half-mechanical ghoul is a grotesque preview of Elias's own potential end. Not just a victim, but another cog in the machine's endless, hungry turning. The tone here is cosmic horror meets gothic tragedy. Should the letter hint more explicitly at the inventor's fate, or is the ambiguity more chilling? The letter slipped from Elias's fingers, fluttering to the floor like a dead leaf. The cat, no, not a cat anymore, stared at him with its one living eye, the brass one whirring softly as it focused. The clicking from its throat wasn't a purr. It was the sound of a countdown. Elias's breath came in ragged gasps. His hand, half flesh, half something else, clenched into a fist. He had to fix this, had to undo it. The machine had taken his watch, his sanity, pieces of his own body. It had turned a living creature into a grotesque marionette of gears and dying flesh. But maybe, if he pushed it further, if he forced it to its limits, it could be reversed. He grabbed the device, its surface now warm to the touch, vibrating like a living thing. The key turned too easily in his grip, as if it wanted to be wound. Once, twice, 3 times. Then he kept going. 4, 5, 6. The ticking became a scream. Gears ground against each other, spitting out sparks that burned his skin. The blue light flared, then turned a sickly, pulsating green. The air itself seemed to warp, the walls of the shop bending inward as if the room were being sucked into a drain. And then, everything that had ever vanished came back at once. The pocket watch materialized mid-air and shattered against the floor, its innards rusted to dust. The porcelain figurine reappeared, but in 5 places at once, each copy cracked in ways that didn't match, as if they'd been broken in different timelines. The books, the key, the candle holder, all of them remade, but wrong, fused together in a grotesque sculpture of melted brass and warped leather. And the cat, oh God, the cat. It was everywhere, in pieces, whole. A kitten, a skeleton, a thing of pure metal, screaming without sound. A dozen versions of it, all existing at once, all wrong, all unfinished. And then Elias saw himself. A figure in the corner, him, but not him. A hollow-eyed Elias with a face of tarnished silver, his mouth open in a silent wail, his fingers fused into clock hands. The device shuddered in his grip. The key snapped off, and then silence. The machine sat dead on the counter, no ticking, no light, just cold, inert metal. Around him, the shop was a nightmare of half-real objects, glitching in and out of existence. The air smelled of burning oil and blood, and in the shadows, something turned its head to look at him. Deeper meaning and foreshadowing. This is the point of no return, the moment Elias, in his desperation, breaks time itself. The machine's overload doesn't just return what was lost. It vomits it back in every possible broken state at once, revealing the true cost of tampering with forces beyond human understanding. The multiple versions of the cat and himself confirm the horror. The machine doesn't just move things through time, it splinters them across realities. The silent, metallic doppelganger in the corner is the final warning. Elias is no longer just a user of the machine. He's becoming part of its design. The tone here is full-blown cosmic horror, with body horror and existential dread woven together. The glitching, half-real objects and the fragmented cat emphasize that time isn't linear. It's a fragile pane of glass, and Elias has just shattered it. The final image, something watching him from the dark, hints that the machine was never truly inert. It was waiting. Would you like to lean even harder into the body horror of Elias's own transformation, or let the environmental chaos take center stage? Elias Grayson stood amidst the wreckage of his own unraveling. The shop was no longer a shop. It was a gallery of impossibilities. Objects flickered in and out of existence, their forms melting and reforming like wax under a flame. The air hummed with a sound just beyond hearing. A dissonant chord played on the strings of time itself. His hands, one flesh, one something else, shook as he reached for the machine. It sat motionless, cold. The gears, once gleaming, were now blackened as if burned from within. The casing, once polished brass, had dulled to the color of old bone. The keyhole was empty, the broken key still clutched in his trembling fingers. He needed to destroy it, to smash it, melt it, bury it where no one would ever... A whisper of movement. Elias turned. The doppelganger, the other him, stood inches away. Its metallic face reflected no light, absorbing the room like a void. It didn't blink, didn't breathe. It simply was, a frozen scream given form, and then it reached out. Elias recoiled, but too late. The thing's fingers brushed the machine, and the world buckled. A soundless detonation, a flash of impossible color. When Elias's vision cleared, the doppelganger was gone, and so was the machine, not broken, not moved, erased, as if it had never existed at all. The shop was silent, the air still. The grotesque amalgamations of half-returned objects were gone. No watch, no cat, no twisted versions of himself. Only the lingering scent of ozone and the creeping dread that something was still watching. And then, a single, familiar tick, not from the counter, from inside him. Elias looked down at his corrupted hand. The metallic sheen had spread to his wrist. Beneath the skin, something moved. Gears, turning, deeper meaning and foreshadowing. This is the true horror. Not the machine's disappearance, but the revelation that it was never the source of the phenomenon, only a conduit. The doppelganger's final act suggests it wasn't a victim, but a custodian. A future Elias who understood too late that the machine couldn't be destroyed, only passed on. The ticking inside Elias's flesh implies the curse was never in the device, but in the act of using it. He has become the new mechanism, doomed to carry the anomaly forward until another fool takes his place. The silence of the shop isn't peace, it's the eye of the storm. The tone here is bleak inevitability, with body horror as the punctuation. The machine's vanishing isn't an end, but a transformation. Elias is no longer a man, but the next iteration of the horror. The final tick confirms the cycle is eternal. Would you prefer a more ambiguous ending, or should we see the first flicker of another Elias in the shadows, watching himself from the edges of time? Elias Grayson stood amidst the wreckage of his own unraveling. The shop was no longer a shop. It was a gallery of impossibilities. Objects flickered in and out of existence, their forms melting and reforming like wax under a flame. The air hummed with a sound just beyond hearing. A dissonant chord played on the strings of time itself. His hands, one flesh, one something else, shook as he reached for the machine. It sat motionless, cold. The gears, once gleaming, were now blackened as if burned from within. The casing, once polished brass, had dulled to the color of old bone. The keyhole was empty, the broken key still clutched in his trembling fingers. He needed to destroy it, to smash it, melt it, bury it where no one would ever. A whisper of movement. Elias turned. The doppelganger, the other him, stood inches away. Its metallic face reflected no light, absorbing the room like a void. It didn't blink, didn't breathe. It simply was, a frozen scream given form. And then it reached out. Elias recoiled, but too late. The thing's fingers brushed the machine, and the world buckled. A soundless detonation, a flash of impossible color. When Elias's vision cleared, the doppelganger was gone, and so was the machine. Not broken, not moved, erased, as if it had never existed at all. The shop was silent, the air still. The grotesque amalgamations of half-returned objects were gone. No watch, no cat, no twisted versions of himself. Only the lingering scent of ozone and the creeping dread that something was still watching. And then, a single, familiar tick, not from the counter, from inside him. Elias looked down at his corrupted hand. The metallic sheen had spread to his wrist. Beneath the skin, something moved. Gears, turning, deeper meaning and foreshadowing. This is the true horror. Not the machine's disappearance, but the revelation that it was never the source of the phenomenon, only a conduit. The doppelganger's final act suggests it wasn't a victim, but a custodian. A future Elias who understood too late that the machine couldn't be destroyed, only passed on. The ticking inside Elias's flesh implies the curse was never in the device, but in the act of using it. He has become the new mechanism, doomed to carry the anomaly forward until another fool takes his place. The silence of the shop isn't peace. It's the eye of the storm. The tone here is bleak inevitability, with body horror as the punctuation. The machine's vanishing isn't an end, but a transformation. Elias is no longer a man, but the next iteration of the horror. The final tick confirms the cycle is eternal. Would you prefer a more ambiguous ending, or should we see the first flicker of another Elias in the shadows, watching himself from the edges of time? Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell for more. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. See you in the next one. Bye for now.